back to my channel. So today is a video that I've been talking about for a while. It's an interview with a medium. This is my medium. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Michelle, I'm Chaz's mum and I'm a spiritual medium.
Okay, so is that how you would classify yourself, as a spiritual medium, psychic medium? I mean, they're all the same, or no?
Well, they're not the same. I'm a spiritual medium.
So you work with spirit.
I work with spirit.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I've got my little questions. I sat at the kitchen table eating dinner, writing them down. I've been trying to film this video with mum for a while. As she said, she is also my mum. So I've got a few questions. It's also stuff that I want to know, but I get too embarrassed to ask because I don't want her to think I'm being needy. So my first question is, when did you begin to notice that you had a gift?
I would say it was probably about 6-7 years ago. My sister is a spiritual medium too and has always had the gift, if you like, since she was a small child. She sees spirit and hears spirit, so she's clairaudient,
Visual. Clairvoyant is where you see spirit,
yeah,
I think.
so my sister is an amazing medium. But growing up, there were times when it was sort of kept quiet and hidden behind doors, and I think the earliest recollection I've got that my sister was
Gifted,
if you like, I was probably about 16, and my sister left the house one morning to go to work, and it was a winter morning, and she had only been gone 5 or 6 minutes to catch the bus, and then she came back and she was visibly upset. And so you know, my mum spoke to her, but it was always behind closed doors, but you sort of got the gist of it. And the gist was that my great uncle had passed away, but he had come to her to tell her that he'd passed away, but then he also passed on some other information to her about our grandma, to say my mum's mum, Grandma Esther, bless her, to say that my grandma was going to pass away, but my grandma didn't pass away for a few more years afterwards. So you can imagine my sister, who's only 11 months older than me, how distressing that must have been for her, because we lived with my grandma. But then it was all like hush hush, and that sort of freaked me out a little bit, to be honest. And then I left home to be a children's nanny and moved around the country, and I came home one summer. I periodically came home when I had weekends off, but I came home this particular weekend and we had big plans. We were going to go shopping into town and just have a nice weekend as a family, and my sister and my mum. We were just going to have like a girly weekend, if you like. So we all went to bed on the Friday night, and then it was all a bit strange because my grandma would always wake up before everybody, and we all slept in, and then I can just remember my mum screaming and like upset, and we all like appeared on the landing at the same time, and we were like, what's going on? And she said that my grandma had passed away overnight. And because we all lived with my grandma, obviously my dad wasn't around, my mum shared a room with my grandma. So she'd woken up to find that my grandma had passed away overnight, and then loads of things started kicking off for my sister then. I mean, spirit were just literally constantly hounding her, if you like. Not horribly, because spirit are not horrible, but like hounding her, and that was all like quiet, shush, shush. And I think my mum had spoken to the vicar and asked for there something to happen after we buried my grandma, whether that was like a cleansing or whatever you want to call it.
I just want to mention as well that this is, you have to think of the time frame that this is in. So if Auntie Suzanne was, let's say, 20 at the time when Grandma passed.
I was about 18, 19.
Yeah, so if that's the 80s, that's the start of the 90s, late 80s, and you've just got to think about the time frame that was in. Just because obviously now, if this was happening, we all might be a little bit more like, let's not just go to the church. But I think as well, it's important for me to mention that my mum and my auntie And my nan and my uncle lived in a small village in Doynton in Bristol, and it's a tiny little village, so I think that was probably Nanny's only option that she felt, especially with the time that it was in as well, because it's not, I think now it's a little bit more spirits already in the room. Nice to have you here.
My guides are with me, so when I know my guides are with me, because my ears ring like hell, and they're really ringing at the moment. And we're currently on holiday in Scotland at the moment, so they've been giving me a break, which has been really lovely. But so anyway, going back to the story, we went to the church and we buried Grandma, and then as we were walking away from the grave, my mum had said to my sister, you know, hush, hush it, and I knew something was going on. I'd said something to my sister, and my sister said, no, it's okay now. It's all right, we don't need to do that. Because as soon as my grandma was buried, spirit pulled back. And then there were a few things, and I still was quite freaked out, and I think it was purely because everything was hush-hush about it. Everything was like behind closed doors, and I really felt for my sister. It must have been a difficult time for her. But then I went back to where I was working, which I think was Northampton at the time, and lived away from home for a few more years. And then I moved home and I met Chelsea's dad, and we got married, and I went over to visit my mum one day, and I was sat on the sofa and we were just talking, and then she just kept smiling at the other end of the sofa, and I was like, what are you doing? And she said, oh, Grandma sat at the other side end of the sofa smiling at you. Well, that just freaked me right out, and I literally refused. I left shortly after, but I went home and said to Chelsea's dad, I don't like it, it's frightening me, I can't go over there, blah, 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 because I didn't understand it at that point. So it wasn't until many years later, I think I started going to clairvoyant evenings with my sister. We did that every week, I think, for a long time.
I went with you.
I think you came with us a few times. So then, like I said, 5 or 6 years ago, things started happening for me. I started getting this ringing in my ears, which was intense, as it is quite intense at the moment. And I spoke to my sister about it, and I said to her, look, I keep getting this ringing in my ears, I keep seeing things out the corner of my eye, there were lots of things that were going on. And my sister said to me, you need to come and sit in circle. And I'm like, circle? What's circle? And she's like, that's where you sit and you develop your gifts, if you like. And it is a gift, it's a very lovely gift. So I did go and sit in circle, and I'd never meditated before, I'd never done anything like that before. And I can remember I sat in that circle, and you know, it's not a, what do you call it?
Let's not do that, because Maria will hate me.
No, she won't. What do you call it? You call it a cult. Yeah. Chelsea calls it a cult. It's not a cult.
It's not.
It's one of the most relaxing. You just felt uncomfortable because you didn't understand it. That's what you didn't.
For instance, potentially there is some gift underlying in me, and you probably could see by my face when Mum was talking about the ringing in the ears, corner of the eye. It's been happening a lot more for me lately than it ever has before. I went and sat in circle once or twice a few years ago at Christmas with Mum, and the first time I didn't really get anything, and I was like, I failed. Like, and it's not, you go to circle to develop, and now that I'm a little bit older, I do understand that.
You know, if you've never done it before, it's not going to be in your face, bang, there it is. That's not how it works.
But I did panic, and then I sat with Maria, who is the owner of the like spiritual place that Mum goes, the circle. And I gave Maria a reading, and I closed my eyes, and I always remember this, I closed my eyes, and this angel stepped forward, and I could see him, and he was right here, and he was so beautiful. His wings, I got goosebumps, his wings were huge, and I just opened my eyes and said, I can see an angel, and I don't know what he's trying to tell me to tell you, but he's there, and I feel like maybe you need to listen to him. And anyway, Mum, we all went back to at the end, you go back and you sit and you talk about what you've experienced or how things have gone. And Mum said, well, what about Chelsea? To Maria, she was like, how did Chelsea do? And Maria said she was right. I had a reading yesterday and the Lord told me that I need to listen to my angels, and that's exactly what Chelsea's just told me.
There you go.
And I panicked and I just never went back. And then after that I was like, it's a cult, I don't want to go.
So my first experience of sitting in a circle, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect. So generally what we do is, there's always a lot of laughter, there's always a lot of fun, but it's not a cult. That's what I'm trying to get across. You know, there's a lot of laughter and there's a lot of fun, and we're all circle now at this time is the best it's ever been, and I think that's because people come and people go, and some people are not right and bring a lot of negative energy, and then that disrupts the flow of the circle, if you like. But anyway, my first experience, they do this thing where Maria asks if anybody has any words, so she says, you know, just sit in the choir and whatever you get, write it down. And I've never really been very good at that up until recently. So we all just sort of like say some philosophy, if you like. Generally it's supposed to come from spirit, but you know, it's all quite relaxed. So everybody just says what they want to say, or what they've written, or what spirit have given them. And then we have a meditation. Now, I've never meditated in my life before, and I can just remember it was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever felt in my life. I just came back from the meditation and I was so emotional, and it blew my mind, to be honest. And I was like, oh my god. But so that's basically how I started on this journey.
I just want to double check that the camera's still running, because I just don't know, because we're talking about spirit and stuff, sometimes it likes to. It's still recording, I'll edit that bit out, but I mean, you've answered the circle, but so the next question I had on my list was, how did you feel, I mean, I think you kind of answered this, how did you feel about mediums and spirit and people with the gifts that you have, and Auntie Suzanne has and Beth has? Beth's my cousin.
I think it's really important to say that everybody is different. There is no medium who is better than another medium, okay?
And no one's the same.
No one is the same. We all work differently. I work differently. Spirit work differently. Let's not say I work differently. Spirit work differently with me. Spirit work differently with my sister.
Okay guys, so I just want to say, I'm going to come back into camera view that we started talking about spirit more closely, and the camera started recording, so it might be a little bit jumpy from here on out, but Mum was just saying that everyone works, spirit works differently for everybody, and I think that
there's a lot of ego in the spiritual movement.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, and you know, just because somebody says they're spiritual, or they're a spiritual medium, or they're spiritual, it doesn't, you know, there's a lot of negativity. I think that's the best way to explain it. A lot of ego and a lot of negativity. And the most important thing to me is
spiritually,
you know, we're all unique and individual, and that's really important. And love and light, if you like. It's not something I use that saying a lot, but you know, everything is done with love, because it is pure love that is coming from spirit. You know, that communication is with love like you've never experienced in your life. You know, it's powerful. And I feel privileged that they want to work with me, and I have that opportunity to give people messages.
Definitely.
It's very special.
Can I just say, you're worried about the podcast, this is exactly what it will be like, and it'll just be so good. For me, Mum, and our friend Mel, Mum's friend Mel first, I kind of adopted her as my friend now too. I'm going to be starting a podcast very, very soon, just got to work out the logistics. It'll be over Zoom, because obviously I live in Edinburgh, and Mum lives in Bristol, Mel lives in Well. So it'll be long distance podcast, but hopefully Mum and Mel are coming up to Edinburgh to have a spooky paranormal weekend, either November or Feb. Mel said she'd come up in November, but Mum's a bit busy, so with a spiritual thing. So, so that's going to happen, and I get excited because I'm buzzing. But yeah, so that, I mean, definitely, I completely agree with you, to be honest. I mean, I've met mediums that I immediately don't feel at ease with. for example, I've met mediums, and I won't say any names, mostly because I can't remember what their names are, but also I'd never do that anyway.
It's not nice to do that anyway.
It's not nice to do that, because people find everyone goes to a medium for something different.
Yeah. And I have people that regularly come to me.
Yeah, Mum has her regulars.
You know, I have
for
some
healing
people that come to me for healing, I have people that come to me for readings every 6 months, you know, I have my regular people that I see a lot. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. And Spirit's kind of left you alone this holiday.
Until today.
Until today when I said, come on Mum, we're going to film now. But yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about how you felt. It was just fear, and I think...
fear of the unknown, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think
I think you think of spirit, if you like, then people say ghosts, don't they? But you think of that and you think, oh my God, people see that I saw that as being scary.
Which is how I felt for a really long time too.
But it's not. It's not. Once you realise, it's beautiful, it's a gift.
I think for me...
It's a communication.
I think that I said to you before, I'm not scared anymore. But I don't know what happened and what clicked, but... I was always terrified, and I think, again, because you see films and people talk about it, and you listen...
because with me, everything was like, hush, hush, don't talk about it, blah, blah, blah. Do you know what I mean? You're thinking, what are they talking about? What are they saying? What's going on?
What are they talking about?
Why is my sister constantly crying?
Yeah,
it was that sort of thing.
Why is she okay?
Yeah.
So I completely get it. I have a question for you, because I know me and you had a conversation about this. Did you struggle to start with letting spirit in?
I think so, because you question yourself, and you know what I love about going to Circle now, as much as what I love about it is when the new people come in and I can help them, because people come in and they come in with the fear and they're like the unknown and oh my God, what if I don't get anything? And the best way that I always say to them, it's like catchphrase, you say what you see. Okay, so you might not see anything, but if you clear your mind and you sit there in the quiet and you get some random thing that makes no sense to you, it's not meant to make sense to you. It's meant to make sense to the person that you're sat with. And so I always say to them, it's like catchphrase. You say what you see, and that's the best way. Because how spirit communicate with me, unique and individual, or how spirit communicate with me, I don't necessarily hear them, even though I've got ringing in my ears. I generally know that they're close to me at that time, but I do see them more than I used to. Recently, it's all changing for me at the moment, but I don't hear them. So the best way for me to explain how they communicate with me is like an old-fashioned picture reel, if you like. So the ones that used to be on a circle. So they'll show me like an image, if you like, and then they may show me another image. This is the best way to explain it. It's very. It's a bit like an old picture reel. So they'll show me an image, and then it builds from that.
Yeah.
So I do see them, but I don't hear what they're saying. They get shown the initial image, and then it builds and builds and builds.
They like impress on you.
They impress it on me, yeah. That's the best way. But not everybody works differently, like I said.
Everyone's unique.
But that's the best way I can say it. That's the best way. And I love being with the newbies that come to Circle, because I know how I felt when I started. And they all come in and they're like, oh my God, what if I don't get anything? And I'm like, you just need to take that deep breath, sit quietly and clear your mind, and don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Because they're not overthinking it up there.
No, they just have
sometimes I might be giving somebody a message and I get something and I'm like, what, really? Can you show that to me again? But literally, if you just say what they've given you, it will make perfect sense to the person that you're giving a message to. So I have a lady that comes to me every month for Reiki. I will be honest, but my healing is changed, and even though I'm trained in Reiki, I feel that how I give healing, maybe not on the direct Reiki way, but anyway, she came for a reading. That's how I first met her, and I just said to her, I've got to give you a jasmine plant, and she broke down crying, and I'm like, why are you crying, my love? And she said, my dad gave me a jasmine plant just before he passed away, and it died. And I'm saying, well, I'm giving you another jasmine plant that you need to plant in your garden, and this one won't die. Yeah. But it's like it meant something to her, but it didn't mean anything to me
you at all.
And it's not meant to.
Because I think me and you had a conversation on the phone a couple of weeks ago before we came on holiday, and you said that spirit would My mum, I will say this, my mum is exceptionally good at setting boundaries with spirit. You have always been very good.
I have always been
until recently, but very, very good at saying, not right now.
So I'm very good because my job is that I'm a nurse and I work in the community, I go into people's houses, and I've always been really good at this is work, this is my work life, this is my home life, this is my spiritual life. And I've always been very good at drawing the line, but spirit have other ideas at the moment, and there's been a few times recently at work where they have stepped in at the most inappropriate times, where I will just say no, step back then. So I was at a patient's house recently, and I was sat on the floor doing his dressings for his legs, and I saw spirit walk past the window, past the door frame. I just chose to ignore them at that time. That's fine. And how spirit work with me too is they love to give me songs. And then I was with another patient, and my colleague was with me, and she knows that I'm a spiritual medium. And I was helping her train up on something, and we were in this care home, if you like, in this patient's room. And there were lots of lovely pictures on the wall, and I just started singing this random song that I didn't even know, but I knew the words to it, and I started singing it, and my colleague said to me, why are you singing that? And I'm like, I really don't know. And then the patient said, that was my partner's favourite song that you're singing. And I left it like that. And then when we got outside, my colleague said to me, how strange that you started singing that song. And I said, did you not hear what the patient said to me? And she said, no, I don't think I did. And I said, she said to me that was her partner's favourite song. And she looked at me and I was like, yeah. And then about 2 weeks ago, about a month ago actually, we always have a team meeting mid-month, but it's all done online, on Microsoft Teams if you like. And we were having a meeting, and a lot of outside people came in to show us stuff and talk about different things, and to be honest it was a bit boring. And then a gentleman stepped in, and yeah, he was pretty much in my face, to be honest. Well, he was very persistent, if you like. And that took me by surprise, because I think because it was quiet and I was watching what the person, I was like just concentrating on the screen. And so this lovely gentleman stepped in. He wanted to communicate with one of my other colleagues that I work with, who probably isn't quite so open to spirit, to be honest. And it was her husband who had passed. I didn't know her husband had passed until afterwards, and I spoke to one of my other colleagues. So that was a bit like, boom.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a little bit of an inappropriate time.
Just struggling a little bit lately.
Yeah, so lately things have, like I said, spirit are changing how they work with me. It's been, that was a little bit different.
I've got here, how important is it to have boundaries with spirit? You've kind of covered that.
It's important. Like I said, I've always been really good at like keeping things separately. Yeah. Work life, home life, spirit life, if you like.
Yeah.
I've always been, really good. Other people ask me that. How can you not go into these, doing the job that I do? I've always worked in care homes, or I've worked, now I'm working in the community as a baby nurse, if you like. So I'm not fully trained at the moment, I'm very close. And I've always been so good, but like I said, spirit.
Lately they've got other ideas.
Spirit have got other ideas.
Me and you, I love to talk about this stuff with my mum. I think that's the main thing. This video is for me as well. Like, I love to talk about this, and once I've asked the question, I will talk about something and then I'll let mum answer. My next question is, do you believe in anything other than the spirit world? As just spirit? And I know the answer to this, because I know.
What do you mean, is there heaven and hell?
No, I mean... So I would like to have a conversation. Something that's really important for me to mention is, and when we were younger, I feel like it probably felt like mum was just being silly or irrational. And what I mean by that is, we'd get out of the car at night, it wouldn't even be that dark, it'd probably be like it is now, and mum would see what she thought was a light in the sky and she would go full panic, sobbing, runs in the house, ushers us all in the house, lights
So
go
basically,
off.
I had an
A irrational fear
irrational
of aliens.
fear of aliens. And I could never explain it, but an irrational. There was something on the telly about somebody had seen something in the sky. I wouldn't leave the house, but it was irrational. Thinking back, it was an irrational fear. Okay.
Yeah, sounds silly.
So I sit in circles. So I sit in an open circle, and I also sit in a closed circle. I used to sit in 2 closed circles. I only sit in 1 closed circle now. And in that closed circle, we do trance mediumship, which is when you go into a trance.
Like transfiguration, like Harry Potter. Thinking
Transfiguration, yeah, it's like Harry Potter. That's when spirit
so like
impress themselves onto you, so your face can change, blah blah blah, and they speak. They use your voice box to communicate. So I sit in trance. So when I first started doing it, that's quite hard to let yourself go to
go that far.
Yeah, to go that far, but I find it easier. I'm not always comfortable when I'm sat in the chair, but I very much like to watch other people work in trance. And so the first sort of time that spirit transfigured on me, if you like, and used my voice box, nobody could understand the communication.
It was the language that is
and I can't do it.
language.
I can't do it to show you because it's not me that makes
you're not going to be able to show us.
So it's very much, by all accounts, so when you sit in trance, if you like, transfiguration trance, things happen. So it blows my mind every time, and I really like it. And I don't want to go into it too much, but they can do things so, like my fingers physically grew.
Yeah.
So like my fingers were very much longer. My face, this is what I've been told, my face changed shape. And I very much looked like an alien, they said. But the way that my alien, if you like, I don't like to call them that.
No.
That's not the correct term for them. Well, not the ones who work with me anyway. But so the way they communicated was with clicks and clucks,
like,
and
it's
I can't do it, so I can't
it's like
show
light
you.
language.
It's like a light language.
Yeah.
And I can remember that the lady that runs Circle, I don't want to use her name, she used to say to me, or she would say to me, you need to ask them to communicate in a language that we can understand. Now when I was in trance, they were communicating with me, and what they were saying to me was that they wouldn't understand what they were trying to tell them. They weren't ready for the information that they're trying to
give
through. So I don't like to call them aliens now. I call them light beings. That's what we call them. Okay, I got goosebumps because they're acknowledging that I'm correct. Thank you very much. So I've recently learned I have some new light beings that work with me, so I think I have 2 or 3 light beings that work with me, but it makes perfect sense now. The reason I was
so frightened
was because I technically am a light being, as we all are. So when people talk to you about aliens, there's nothing to be afraid. Please don't use the term aliens.
They don't like it.
They don't really like it. Thank you. But it's like they're light beings, and they are walking amongst us now. They are around us, they walk amongst us. And that is as far as I'm going. I'm not going into what I know because
I was never going to ask you that.
I don't like to share that information.
That's their information to share.
But I know something is going to happen in the future, and that's the end of that conversation.
Yeah, end of that conversation. A spirit quite close now in the room.
No, they're just with
but like
me.
Spirit in general, like our guides and stuff are in the room.
My guides are very much with me.
Because like my whole, like it feels like someone's
like I said, I don't see them, so I don't know if your spirit guides are with you, but I know that my guides are with me.
It feels like they are. It's the only way I can explain it. So I had a reading with Mum's friend Mel. We love you, Mel. And it's a whole, I can't explain it. I haven't got any
message, though I feel there may be somebody who would watch this. That's what I'm being given.
Being told someone's
that I feel
watch.
that whoever, there is somebody who will watch this that I could have a message for.
Yeah.
But obviously I don't know who they are. Normally I quite like to work with psychometry.
Yeah.
If you don't know what psychometry is, I will take something of yours, whether that's a ring. I don't have to use it. I like to use it. I'm not
something that you have on
something
you
that you have on you that's personal to you,
Yeah.
or personal to somebody who's passed.
Yeah.
So then I will hold the piece of jewellery, if you like,
Yeah.
and I will read your energy.
Yeah.
Or spirit will read your energy from me holding on to that. So
Yeah.
I do feel there's a gentleman that's trying to communicate with me at this time, and I feel quite emotional. Wow. Oh, babe, please stop being emotional. I feel quite emotional. Thank you, my darling. You need to just take that back from me over there. Oh.
Take a deep breath.
Jeez,
We can stop
deep
filming
breath.
for a
Just
second.
step back a little bit, my love, please. Step back a little bit. Oh, that was pretty strong. So I have a lovely gentleman with me. And I don't feel he's that old. And he is, I feel that he would have passed in an accident.
Okay.
Here 1 minute, gone the next. I think it's for a lady, a younger lady who's going to be watching this.
Yeah.
Who is still very much grieving, if you
Yeah,
like.
okay.
And she's just coming in to...
Just coming in to say.
hang on.
Okay. Just gonna adjust the camera.
I don't actually know if he took his own life.
Okay.
Okay. Mental health issues.
Okay.
Struggled with life in general, but I feel he's connected to a younger female lady. There's no younger. I'm like not very good at telling the age differences here, but the female that will watch, there is a female who will watch this, who will understand this, and he just wants to say that he's sorry, but he just couldn't face. He couldn't face life, and he felt that the only thing that he could do was to take himself out of it. And he realises now that he should have spoke to somebody. He's very much watching, and I do feel there's a child that he may have left behind.
Okay.
A male child that he left behind, or there's a younger male that's still on the earth plane.
Okay.
But the younger male is aware of him in spirit.
Okay.
So he just wants to say that he's okay. If any of your followers can take this.
So what I will do, guys,
you
if
can
there
step back now.
Okay, darling.
Oh, and he's coming through. So when spirit come through with love, they always affect my right side, and I get very cold and goosebumpy, and I'm very cold and goosebumpy on my right side. And he's coming through with a lot of love, a lot of love.
He's kind of showing.
He's making me
laugh.
He said he would have loved noodles or Chinese.
Okay.
Because he's giggling about this and saying there's something about Chinese or noodles.
Okay.
A funny tale that goes with that. But he's showing me the packet noodles.
Like super noodles.
They're like super noodles, so he said there's something funny.
Okay.
I don't know if there was a bit of a food fight. I don't know. That's how it's been impressed on me. But he's saying that's a memory that's associated with this, okay?
And what I will say, guys, is I'm going to pop all of Mum's mediumship details in the description. So if this does resonate with someone, you can always find Mum on Facebook. I'm going to set Mum up on Instagram as well, and she'll have it on her phone, so she will get all the messages through to that. And you can contact Mum, and maybe you guys can get in contact and Mum can give you a reading. But
I don't know if there's so Spirit like to give me songs. Generally they want me to sing it, but I'm not going to do that. You know that. Sometimes it does take me over with that. But the song I'm getting, and I don't know if this is still associated to the young man that I was speaking to or was communicating with me a minute ago, but I'm getting the song Bring Me Sunshine When You Smile. That song, I'm getting that song, so whether that resonates with anybody else, but I'm getting that song. That's the memory link too.
okay, and like I said, I'll pop all Mum's stuff in the bottom. I didn't think someone was going to come through.
No, I didn't think someone was going to come through.
Sorry, Mum.
That's quite emotional, that one.
Yes, I've never seen you get like that. So what I will do is, like I said, I'll pop all Mum's details in the comments.
Constantly.
Yeah, I'll pop all of Mum's details in the comments, and if there is a young lady or a young gentleman who resonates with what Mum's just said, please contact Mum, and I'm sure Mum would happily give you a reading.
The younger gentleman who took his own life.
Yeah.
but it's for a younger female
Younger
that's
lady.
still here.
So if there's a younger lady, I'll put all Mum's details. Please don't hesitate to get in contact with her, and you can arrange to have a reading. I'm going to stop the camera for a second, just give Mum a second to, and then we'll come back. Away from spirit, what would you say personally is your favourite part of having your gift?
It's a privilege.
Yeah.
And I love to be able to pass that love over, that communication, because, and you know, not always do I give messages from loved ones in spirit. Yeah. Sometimes I will give guidance.
Yeah.
And I give guidance, if you like. So like on a psychic level, I can not predict, but I can guide them on where they may be in like a 6 or 10 month. There's no time in the spirit world, so if I was to give a reading and say in 6 months' time, there's no time in the spirit world. They're very lucky, they're not governed by time like we are, but I could say 6 months, but it might not be 6 months. It could be a year. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But it's like I give guidance, and I like that too. And what I really love about working with spirit is that, you know, I can have people come, or I go to people and give them a reading, and just their energy is very low. You can see in their face they're tired. Their facial, you know, they're very. I don't know the best way to explain this. You know, the colouring's not very good on their face. They just look a bit shallow, or you know. They're not right. They're not right. But what's so lovely is to see the difference in somebody when they've had a reading and they've gone. Yeah. Because it's almost like they've lost 10 years. Yeah. It's a relief. It's for the person, I mean. For the person. I don't know if it's so much of a relief, but it's a warming. Yeah. That's the best way to explain it. You can see the warmth returns to them. Yeah, it's nice. So I think it's nice, that's the most. That's what I get out of it. What you love about it. I don't do this for money. No. Do I charge people? I do, but it's an exchange of gifts. Yeah. It's an exchange. You know, I don't charge a lot for my readings, but it's an exchange. And if you work with spirit, you exchange. So if I was to give my friend Mel a reading, I wouldn't. The exchange is that she would then give me a reading, you know, but we don't sit there and go, well, I'll give you a reading, you give me a reading. Yeah. It just comes and flows naturally, you know, so it's an exchange. But my exchange almost is that I get to see how they transform from having a reading. Yeah. That's my gift that I get. It's like a blessing. It's a blessing. Yeah. I was going to ask you if there's anything that you don't particularly like about it. But I think maybe that the only thing that I could think of that you might say is the fact that they're coming through and you're not able to set as much of a boundary as you were before. Well, like I said, spirit are changing very much how they work with me. With you, so it's just you know, my the healing side of it, even though I've done my Reiki training, I've never really used that side of it until recently when this lady came and she had a reading and then she had the healing. And then... But she comes to you every month. She comes to me once a month now. She says she'd come more if she could, but financially she can't. But she comes to me once a month for healing, and that's really how I can see that how spirit are working with me is changing, because the spirit, I'm drawn to the healing side of it a lot more than I used to be. It was quite funny. I recently did a psychic fair, if you like, I was down in Somerset for a weekend at the healing weekend. I worked down there, I served spirit there for the weekend, and my pops arranged for me to have a reading with another medium when we were down there, and I went to see this guy, and literally an hour before I'd been discussing with Stella how I'm drawn, so I'm really drawn to healing with crystals. That I feel like that's where I need to go, and we had this conversation, and an hour later I had this reading with this amazing medium, and he literally, one of the first things he said to me was, you do know you work with light beings? I'm like, yes, I do know that. And then he said, I think you're going alongside your mediumship, he said you're going along the path of crystal healing, and I was like, boom, that blew my mind. So, you know, I didn't very often have readings myself, but the reading he gave me made a lot of sense to me, and it blew my mind, especially as an hour before we've been discussing about, I really feel like I'm drawn to crystal healing, and then he said to me, you do know that you're going to be a crystal healer.
Yeah, amazing.
So yeah, so like, boom, that was confirmation. Yeah, blew my mind, yeah, amongst other things.
So our next question, sorry to keep you, Mum. Obviously I'm quite into the paranormal side of it. I'd say I spoke to my mum and my dad about this, okay? And Mum and Dad aren't together anymore, but obviously they've both had me in their lives.
Paranormal experiences.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about one of them, a big one, the one that I've been teasing for a while, in a bit. How do you feel about the paranormal side of it? Because obviously you have a daughter, and I'll be very honest, I had a conversation with Mum, and I want Mum at the end to give a little bit of, not advice, but just say something nice for anyone who is starting on their spiritual journey, because obviously we both know what it feels like to be like overwhelmed by spirit. And I said to Mum that I wanted to be the next Yvette Fielding, and that's
you have to follow your dreams.
And Mum said to me, do what makes your heart sing.
That's my favourite saying. And
that really resonated with me, and then I came back to YouTube a week later because I was like, I miss YouTube. I love sitting and filming.
We should all
do what makes your heart sing.
Do what makes our heart sing. If something doesn't feel right for you, then you shouldn't be doing it. Listen to your intuition.
Yeah. Listen to your
and at the end of the day, you know, you have to do what's right for you. And if something doesn't make your heart sing, then you really shouldn't be doing it. Listen to your gut feeling. So your gut feeling is always right.
Yeah. So how do you feel about the paranormal side of it? Because
I like the paranormal side of it. I do go on paranormal investigations.
Yeah.
I do. I used to love Most Wanted when the girls were younger.
And that's my first.
Yeah, I like that side of it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So obviously that's the side that I'm interested in.
So I was very frightened about that side of it for a long time. But
me and Mum, I have such fond memories of. So it was two very different aspects. I used to sit on the sofa with my dad when I go to my dad's house, and we'd watch like Colin Firth, Derek Acorah, God rest his soul, and other mediums on the television, and I'd sit with Dad and I'd sit under Dad's arm and we'd just sit and watch these mediums giving readings, which is actually quite funny to how now Mum was a psychic medium. But me and Mum used to sit and watch Most Haunted together, and we always used to watch the Halloween special, and we'd sit with my cousin Beth, who is also an amazing medium, I will say. Well done, Beth, for passing your nursing, we're really proud of you. But I used to sit with my cousin Beth, and she has an Instagram page, I will pop that down below as well. And we always used to sit, me and Beth, and we'd sit on the sofa and we'd watch Most Haunted together, and so I've always had like a little bit of summit about it. There's something about it that attracts me to it, but I think it's just the fear, isn't it? It's the fear of the unknown. And I've always said I want to go on a paranormal investigation and I want to walk out screaming.
Yeah.
And Mum says the same. We want to walk out being like, oh, this. Like, do you know what I mean?
I've been to some of the most notorious West Country
haunted places.
Haunted places. Shepton Mallet Prison.
Went to the ramen.
I will never go to the ramen.
I thought you went with
Mel
Nanny.
No, I will never go to the ramen.
Where did you go with Nanny? Stella? And Pops?
No, that was a
prison.
That was a prison down in Cornwall.
Yeah, that wasn't the ramen. I'm going to the ramen.
No, I would never go to the ramen.
Are you frightened of it?
I would never go to the ramen.
Me and Mel had a conversation about it. Maybe me and Mel will go.
Mel will never go back to the ramen.
Okay, so evidently maybe that's something to do for the future. No, it won't be Mum.
So no, I've been to Shepton Mallet Prison. Yeah. That was quite flat. You know, but can I just say about paranormal, right? Just because one time you go and there's nothing that happens doesn't mean that there's not going to be anything that happens the next time you go.
You can sit there
so recently Mel and I went to Arnos Vale Cemetery, which is in Bristol, and just to walk around in daylight if you like.
With Pops and...
My partner Ronnie came, and my Pops came. It was me, Mel, Pops and Ronnie and some other friends, but they were there before us and left before we left, and we would just walk around the graveyard if you like. There were some fascinating graves there, and then
I'll pop some photos in if Mum will send me some.
Yeah, I'll send you some. And then Mel and I just sort of walked off on our own, Pops was meditating and Ronnie was just doing his thing like
Ronnie
he does.
doing his thing.
And then we felt that there was tunnels underneath the ground, so we walked over to this building, and then I saw a gate and said, oh, you know, Mel, look at this gate, blah, blah. I walked away from the gate, Mel walked to the gate, and then she just said to me, I just want to kill you. And I'm like, that's nice. And then I felt a man come in, and he was quite aggressive and trying to be quite pushy with me, and I literally told him to fuck off. Sorry.
No, you can swear on my channel, I don't care.
And so then he was quite pushy towards me, and Mel kept saying, I just want to hurt you. I just
That's the
feel...
sign to leave, if anything.
And then my guides came in quite strangely, walking around, and they, you know, my guides don't always come in those situations, but my guides came in then and they said, after about an hour, it's time to leave. And I looked at Mel and went, it's time to leave. And she said, I can't look at you. And I said, that's why it's time to leave.
Yeah.
Then my guides say it's time to go.
Mel will watch this because Mel is the most supportive woman I've ever, like, other than my mum supports me, but Mel is the most incredible woman, and I have so much love for this woman, and she will watch this video. We love you. And I would like to say Mel is like the most, she's not an aggressive person. She wouldn't hurt
she's
life.
so soft.
She's so
lovely.
Soft and gentle, and we love her so much.
We do.
But yeah, so this is out of character for Mel to react like that, and it was obviously something that had impressed itself onto Mel, and Mum's guides did the right thing by stepping in and being like, right, off you pop. But yeah, we've just finished talking about you at Arnisvale, and I hope that recording didn't cut off. I'll be so sad if it did. But now we're going to talk about the bunk bed story, which is a story that I talk about a lot. But Mum, it's important for me to mention I was a very young child, so I don't really remember it, whereas Mum was there as an adult and was present.
With your older sister.
With my older sister Gemma, who also watches these videos, so hi Gemma. And I want you to tell it.
So,
this
I
is like
was saying, lead up to this night, there had been a few things going on at home, and I suppose I was just sort of trying to get a bit of an interest in what was going on spiritually. So my ex-husband was at work, and it was me, my stepdaughter Gemma, and we were downstairs watching the telly, and Chelsea and her younger sister Rosie were in bed, and they had bunk beds. So Rosie was about 18 months old, but she was very dinky, and Chelsea would have been about 4. So Chelsea was on the top bunk, Rosie was on the bottom bunk. Anyway.
Like a bed.
Yeah, it had a frame on it.
Yeah.
So they were in bed, and Chelsea, Gemma and I, were watching the telly, and the telly went off, and we tried to put it back on with the remote control, but it wouldn't go back on, so then we had to physically turn it on the telly.
Yeah.
And I think it did it once or twice. Gemma will be able to confirm that or not. And then we just heard this horrific screaming coming from the girls' bedroom. So Gemma and I ran upstairs. As we got to the top of the stairs, the loft hatch was open.
Yep.
Now, I could never open the loft hatch, and it wasn't open when I put the girls to bed. And so my ex-husband would have physically had to punch it to open it, but it was open. We're like, that's a bit odd. Anyway, so we walk into the girls' bedroom, or rush into the girls' bedroom if you like, and Chelsea's screaming, and Rosie was screaming, and hysterically, and I'm like, oh my god, what's going on? How did Rosie get up there?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that Rosie was sat by my head.
That's what I said, you were both on the bunk bed and Rosie was sat by your head, that's right. And I'm like, how the hell did Rosie get up there? And they were both screaming, and I'm like, calm down, and managed to calm them down, which took a while to be honest. And I said to Chelsea, how did Rosie get on your bed? And she said, she came over my head, mummy. And I was like, sorry? She came over my head. So Chelsea's head was at the opposite end of the bunk bed to the steps that she had to climb to get up there. And she said to me, Rosie came over her head.
Yeah.
Okay, so it took a lot of calming down. We managed to settle them back down, Rosie in the bottom bunk, Chelsea in the top bunk. I think we left a nightlight on, and they went back to sleep.
Yeah.
But Rosie, Gemma and I were trying to just what the hell was going on. The telly kept going on and off after that. Over the next week or so, lights were flickering on and off. Anyway, so the next morning, obviously I told my ex-husband what happened. I think he was a bit cynical about it, to be honest. But the next morning, when they got up, I had Rosie, and I said to Rosie, go on then, climb the ladder. And she physically couldn't get her she couldn't get her foot, she was so tiny, high enough to get onto the bottom rung of the ladder.
Which means she would never have been able to
She
get
couldn't climb the ladder. And Chelsea was adamant that she came over her head. So
that's the Bunk Bed story.
That's the bed story. But about a month or so later, I had some of my work friends round, and my ex-husband was there, Malcolm was there, and we had a clairvoyant that came to the house to give us all readings. And I remember him specifically saying, so I can't say that word, specifically saying, there's something going on, like strange things happening in the house. We're like, yeah. And then also I had a reading with another clairvoyant, another psychic, if you like, at the time. His name's John Starkey. He's a very good medium. Gives you a reading over the phone. And I remember having a reading with him not long after the bunk bed incident, and he said to me, a lot of strange things happening in the house. And I'm like, yeah. And he said, like, lights going on and off, and I'm like, amongst other things. And he said, yeah, spirit are trying to communicate with you. And I suppose thinking back now and knowing what I know now, maybe that was the start of spirit trying to work with me.
Yeah.
I don't know. But he said, there's been a lot of strange things going on, lights going on and off. And I'm like, a lot of things are going on. I told him the story of the bunk beds, and he said, spirit are trying to communicate with you, and you just need to go into that a bit further. I wasn't quite ready at that time, no. But yeah. But so, yeah.
And once Gemma had moved out, that room that happened in was my room, and Rosie had Gemma's old room.
Yeah.
And I tried to tell this story, and I'm hoping now that Mum's here, Spirit will let me tell it. But
there was nothing negative.
It was nothing negative, but so how the room was laid out is there was a side attic as well, and the door.
So it was a walk-in attic.
Yeah, like a walk-in attic, and the door was in my room, and it was like a big wooden door, an old wooden door.
It wasn't that big.
I was 4, so it was bigger than me. I'm only 5'2" now, so you can imagine. And I used to have the same reoccurring dream, only ever in that room, right? But it never happened anywhere else. Because when we used to stay at the barn, you know what I'm talking about, I had another reoccurring dream about a vampire, remember? Which is why I've got the most irrational fear of vampires ever. But my dream in that room is that I'd wake up in bed and the attic door would swing open and a man would come through and he had a top hat, and I followed him in, and you have to remember I was 4 or 5, so this is like terrifying to a 5-year-old.
The houses were built in the 50s, probably.
And the door would swing open in my dream and the man would walk through and he'd put his top hat on as he walked through the door. And he was a big scary man, and I actually think now, thinking back to it, it probably was a vampire. So I must have seen something on the TV or something. Yeah. And he would come in, and in would follow him would be a tiger. And this tiger was like white and black. It was like a black and white dream, because the man had purple on his coat, and I can still see it, like even thinking about it now. And he used to come and sit on the end of my bed, and he used to tell me, Chelsea, if you don't put your hands and feet under the covers, I'm going to set the tiger on you. And so even now, as an adult, I sleep like this. Like if my hands and feet are out, I have a panic attack, I can't cope with it. And I don't know if but it was only ever in that room. And then when we stayed at the barn, I used to stay in my friend's bunk bed, and I'd sleep on the bottom bunk, and I'd have the vampire dream. And in this dream, I'd like close my eyes, obviously, and then I'd wake up in the bed, and a vampire would be stood over me. And again, you have to remember I was like 6 or 7, maybe 8, and I'd start screaming for Mum. And obviously I'm in my dream, I'm like, Mummy, 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 Mummy. And as soon as I stopped screaming, he'd stop. As if to be like, why are you not scared of me anymore? And then I start screaming again, because you'd never come. But then most of the time you would come, because then you'd hear me screaming in my sleep, and Mum would come in and wake me up. And then I'd have to go into Mum's room because I was terrified of the vampire. But
then, you see, spirit are very much around us.
Yeah.
And then when my youngest daughter, Kitty, who's 12, nearly 13, and when we lived in Yates, which we went for a period of where she would wake up screaming in the night, and we struggled to get her to go to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
And my partner Ronnie and I went to a clairvoyant evening, and the medium came to us. This is again before I started doing this, really.
Yeah.
And
Before
I started using my gift, or spirit came to work with me, and a medium came to us, and I think she had to be about 4 at the time. No, yeah, about 4, 3, 4. And he said, oh, you've got a little one at home, and we were like, yeah. And she's not sleeping very well, and we're like, no, she keeps waking up crying. And in her bedroom, I bought this beautiful mural of a tree, a blossom tree, and we put it up on the wall, and on the tree was the little girl on a swing, and she used to love it, and then she got really frightened of it. So he said, the reason that she's waking up screaming is because spirit wants to come and talk to her, or they're coming to talk to her, but because she's so young, she doesn't understand. Now, children are more susceptible to spirit because their minds are not scarred by life, if you like. And he said it's because spirit are coming to her and she doesn't understand it, and so obviously she's frightened. So he said, this is a funny story that goes with this, he said you need to, when you put her to bed on night, ask them to step away and leave her alone because she's only little, and that's what you need to do, please leave her alone, she's only little, she's not ready for this. So the next night, Ronnie was putting her to bed, and I could hear this commotion going on up in the bedroom, so I went up the stairs, and as I walked into her room, she's laid in the bed, and Ronnie is saying, Ronnie's going, fuck off. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm telling them to fuck off and leave her alone. And I said to him then, don't say it like that. What you have to say is, please can you leave her alone? She's only a small child, she doesn't understand. And he goes, no, fuck off. But it didn't happen again.
But you know what, and I remember
and now she's very spiritual. She sees spirit, she's just started going to circle. Not this year, but last year at the healing weekend when she came down with her dad, she came to me and said to me, Mum, there are so many spirit down here, and I was like, there are, lovely, it's a spiritual weekend, there's lots of readers, there's lots of healing going on. I said, so yeah, she goes, no, but I've seen them, Mum, they're just walking around, and I said, I'm pretty sure they are. So we have a spirit cat in our house, who's got one of the biggest, fluffiest tail. I've seen him, you've seen him, but Kitty sees him literally daily, and he lies on her chest in bed, which
she's for a while as well, didn't she?
That's she did have a Casper for a while, an imaginary friend. Is it imaginary? Mm.
You saw a medium, and the medium said that it wasn't.
Yes.
There was a little boy in her room.
There's a little boy in her room, there is.
But she called him Casper.
She called him Casper the Ghost.
Which is always funny when we tell people, because Casper the Ghost.
So you know, she has this lovely spirit cat that she loves. She's just started coming to circle her.
Now we've told the Bunk Bed story, and you talked about Kitty a little bit, my beautiful little sister. I just want to end the video, if there's anything that you personally, obviously having been someone who's gone through your spiritual awakening, is there
I'm still going through my spiritual awakening.
I mean, same. Same, sis. And the more I hear you talk about it tonight, I'm just like, oh, that's what's to come. I do want to go into it, I do.
But remembering that spirit work differently with different people, so...
Spirit for me,
remember what I said, that everybody's unique and individual, there is no one better than anyone else. We all work differently, spirit work differently with every single one of us.
I mean, I've been on FaceTime with Mum recently, and I've seen someone walk into my door frame, and then they come and lie next to me on my bed when I'm led like this.
The orbs,
Yeah, Mum's been watching the orbs flying around me.
When I speak to Chelsea on FaceTime, she's always got a lot of orbs around her, which is lovely.
Yeah, and it's nice that you can see them.
Yeah.
I think that I've definitely got some guides, and Mel said as well, the guides are stepping in. And when I had my reading with Mel, they were so close, I could feel them. It was amazing. It's a beautiful experience.
I'll just say that when I did have my reading with that medium, when I went at the healing weekend, I've always had a fascination with Egypt. I don't know what it is, and it was quite nice to find out that actually in a previous life I was a high priestess in Egypt.
And me and Mum have been together before too. It's not the first time we've walked. It's actually quite funny because in our previous life, and this is something Mel mentioned to me, is that I was the big sister. So I was the older sister in this dynamic, and I was told as well that I've been a witch. I was a witch in Edinburgh in a previous life, which is what drew me to Edinburgh. I've got things I need to finish up there, which is amazing. But Mel did mention about me being a witch and the esplanade of Edinburgh Castle. For anybody who knows, that's where the witches were burnt. And I have a really weird connection to the witch as well in Edinburgh. I've been up there a couple of times and just sat there by myself like a little weirdo, just thinking to spirit, because the way that I see it is like with the witches that were executed, and there was over 3,000 of them in Edinburgh alone.
Well, technically I'm a witch.
Yeah.
You're a witch.
This is what I was going to say.
It's
and
not witchcraft, is it?
I like to go up there.
Then it was seen as witchcraft.
Yeah. And I go up there and I sit there and I just put a thought out to the women and men that were burnt for being.
It was quite funny when we were up there visiting Chelsea in February. We went on a ghost hunt on a paranormal. When we went to the vaults, and Chelsea's younger sister Kitty is a redhead, and it was deemed if you in those times.
You were a witch.
If you were a redhead, you were a witch. She was quite proud of that.
Yeah, she was like, and what? But yeah, I mean, I go up to the witch as well, and I'll just stand there for a second.
But we're white witches.
Yeah, I put a thought out and I just say thank you for your sacrifice, because if it wasn't for everything that happened to you back in the day, then my mum wouldn't be able to be who she is, and my auntie wouldn't be able to be who she is, and Kitty and Rosie. And
can I just say though that this, going through this experience and working with spirit, or spirit working with me, has completely changed my life, and I have a totally different outlook on life now. I didn't have any self-confidence. I was always quite quiet, quite shy, very negative on myself. And I still can be at times, let's just say that. But what I do want to say is that this has completely and utterly changed my life. I have a different outlook on life now. I'm very positive. I totally believe, and the girls hate it when I say this, but negativity breeds negativity. Positivity breeds positivity. It has positively enriched my life in more ways than one.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important, it's, you know, I literally feel that I'm where I should be now, even though I know I've got a long way to go. I'm where I need to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, just it's, yeah.
Wonderful. So yeah, the last thing is, if there was anybody that is watching this that is spiritually inclined at the start of their journey, it's just interesting.
I'm not an expert.
Huh?
I'm not an expert.
No. But if there's anything advice-wise or anything you'd like to say to people just that are on their journey and just need a little bit of support or love.
Find a circle. I can't stress that enough.
Yep.
It's not a cult. Just find a circle. Go and find people who are like-minded, because it literally will change your
Find
mind.
yourself a family.
Yeah, you just need to find
Just
your family. So yeah, so you just need to find a circle wherever you are, wherever you live.
And do what makes your heart sing.
And can I just say, you know, not every circle is right for every person, so you'll know when you're in the right circle.
And do what makes your heart sing.
Yeah, do what makes your heart sing, that's the most important thing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay guys, so that's it for this week's video. I actually think I filmed about an hour-long clip, so it'd be more like a podcast than an actual video. Like I said, me, Mum and Mel are going to be starting a podcast in the next couple of months. And it will have a completely different YouTube channel to this, but obviously the link will be in my bio when it goes live. I'm excited, Mel's excited, Mum is nervous.
I'm nervous.
But that's that. So again, what I will do is, my mum is on Facebook, it's Michelle Tallis, Spiritual Medium.
Yeah.
But I will pop all her links below. Like I said, I'm going to sort her out on Instagram before I go home tomorrow.
Can I just say though that I've never done a Zoom reading before, so
yeah.
I'm a little bit nervous about that.
It's not that she's saying no, it's that she's saying that she wants to make people aware that it's not something that she's done via Zoom, although she has done some lives on Mel's spiritual page, so, but it was amazing. You were amazing. Okay, stop putting yourself.
And it'd be really interesting to know if anybody can take the young gentleman that came through this evening.
Please let us know if you're in my comments, and I can direct you to Mum. I mean, Mum's Facebook page will direct you to her WhatsApp and also all of her other stuff too. It does.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm not technical at all.
It directs you to your WhatsApp, by the way. Yeah, so that's it for this week's video. All Mum's details will be down in the description. I hope you guys have an amazing week. Do what makes your heart sing, and I'll see you next Friday for another video. Bye!
Bye.